Shocking truth revealed. How a millionaire's son changed after hitting a pregnant woman's husband. Jack Thompson was the golden boy of Willow Creek, wealthy, handsome, and adored by all. But tonight, under a thunderous sky, he felt nothing but exhilaration as he sped down the slick roads of suburban Chicago. The annual charity gala buzzed in his ears like a fading echo, the allure of privilege shimmering just out of reach. He gripped the steering wheel of his father's luxury car, feeling invincible. Little did he know, his world was about to shatter. With a sudden flash of headlights, he caught sight of headlights turning into his lane. He swerved, but it was too late. The sickening crunch of metal against metal jolted him into reality. Heart racing, Jack stumbled out of the car, panic flooding his senses as he approached the crumpled vehicle a family already shared countless dreams inside. A future unspooled in seconds. Inside the mangled wreck, Mike Rivers lay unconscious, fear emblotting his brow. A skilled construction worker, he had a life lined with hopes, the biggest of which was set to bloom with the arrival of his first child. The sirens wailed in the distance, a haunting lullaby for dreams turned nightmares. Jack fell to his knees, helpless and drenched in guilt. As time froze around him, as news spread through Willow Creek, Jack's image fractured. The neighborhood he once roamed with pride now cast him as the villain. Friends, once familiar faces, turned cold. Their judgment whispered in every corner. The clinking of wine glasses at parties became a distant memory as he faced the raw resentment of the community. Across town, in their modest home, Mike's wife, Sarah, rallied her loved ones. Their bond forged in the crucible of struggle. They would fight for Mike, for their unborn child, for hope. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of guilt settled heavily on Jack's shoulders. He could no longer retreat into the comforts of wealth. It was during a stormy evening, when the skies seemed to mirror his turmoil, that he found himself at the local community center, a place he had always dismissed as irrelevant. Stepping through the doors, he was met with stories of hope, of hardship meeting resilience. Each tale was a mirror reflecting the disparities he had ignored for far too long. Jack began to volunteer, hoping to bridge the chasm between him and the Rivers. Each connection cut deeper than the last, revealing nuances of humanity he'd never before recognized. As he engaged with Sarah one fateful day, the tension crackled in the air. Emotions escalated: anger, sorrow, and a longing for understanding. "What do you know about consequences?" she barked, tears glistening in her eyes. And in that moment, everything hung in the balance. Would Jack lean into the light of vulnerability and transformation, or would he cower behind the fortress of his privilege? The answer would shape more than his destiny. It would redefine the very fabric of their community. A storm of change loomed, the outcome precariously poised on the edge of a single choice. Jack stood frozen in the aftermath of Sarah's words. Her glare pierced through his defenses, and he felt the weight of her grief like a heavy, unyielding shroud. The power of her pain reverberated in the small community center, squeezing the air out of his chest. "Consequences," he echoed, letting the word tumble out as if trying to understand the gravity it carried. He wanted to defend himself, to assert that he hadn't meant for this to happen. But deep down, he knew they were hollow excuses for an unforgivable act. He painted his life with strokes of privilege, but standing before her now, he saw the smear of ashes that had replaced his once cherished aspirations. I'm so sorry," he managed, his voice cracking slightly. Sarah swallowed hard, her expression shifting between anger and vulnerability, and he caught a glimpse of the woman behind the walls she had built. She was a mother-to-be, facing a future she had envisioned with such clarity, now clouded with uncertainty and fear. What does sorry even mean? She shot back, the tremble in her voice revealing a vulnerability that shattered some of his resolve. Your apology won't heal my husband or fix my broken family. Jack ran a hand through his hair, discomfort curling in his stomach. A rush of memories flooded back. He had always thought money could smooth over problems, take away pain. But in this moment, he felt stripped of every illusion. I want to help, he blurted out. Whatever it takes. I want to do something, anything to make this right. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them. A weighty pause that made Jack feel exposed. He could feel the eyes of others in the center watching, their stories intertwined with his and Sarah's, unwitting witnesses to this fragile confrontation. What you can do is leave us alone, she said finally, her voice hardening. Yet he could still hear the faint crack of despair beneath it. You can't fix this, Jack. You can't erase what has been done. His heart sank, each beat echoing the truth of her words. He couldn't erase his actions. The road ahead seemed impossible, and as he turned to leave, the knot in his chest tightened painfully, an unyielding reminder of the consequences he had wrought. Weeks turned into a blur of sorrow and introspection. Jack continued volunteering at the community center, each day a reminder of his past folly. He listened to families share their struggles, their pain mirroring echoes of his own. The stories he had once dismissed as distant now carved themselves into his heart. Despite the distance he felt from society, there was a nagging urgency to reach out to Sarah, to find a way to bring them together. He knew he had to confront her again, to bridge the growing chasm born out of tragedy. Then, during one bitterly cold afternoon, a letter arrived at the center addressed to him from Mike. Jack held it in his trembling hands, hope wrestling with fear as he glanced at the delicate cursive. It read, "We need to talk." His pulse quickened at the prospect of facing the man whose life he had shattered. What would Mike say? What did he want from Jack? Would this be the moment he faced the true consequences of his actions? Would he find redemption, or drown deeper into despair? With a fierce resolve flickering inside of him, Jack understood this was the moment that would define everything. He took a deep breath and prepared for the hardest conversation of his life. What truths lay waiting in the shadows of that impending encounter? The cold afternoon settled in, an uninvited guest on Jack's restless thoughts. He clutched the letter tightly, his fingers growing numb, but the chill outside paled in comparison to what was looming ahead. Jack took a deep breath, his heart racing, and stepped into the uncertainty that wrapped around him like fog. Mike was waiting for him in a corner booth of the diner, his face partially obscured by the shadows cast from the flickering lights above. As Jack approached, he noticed the way Mike's hands clenched around a steaming cup of coffee, knuckles pale against the dark ceramic. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Jack," Mike greeted, his tone flat, void of any warmth. Jack could barely meet his gaze, focusing instead on the scarred wood of the table between them. "Thanks for meeting me," Jack said, his voice carrying the weight of a man teetering on the edge of a precipice. He felt vulnerable, stripped of the layers of privilege he once took for granted. In this moment, he was just a man seeking redemption, desperate to make things right. "What do you want?" Mike asked, cutting through Jack's attempts to gather his thoughts. The hardness in his voice was unmistakable, and Jack braced himself for the storm he knew was coming. "I want to apologize," Jack started, each word feeling like a pebble kicked across a gravel road. "I know it won't change anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry for what happened. I never wanted any of this." Mike studied him, his eyes a mixture of anger and something deeper, possible hurt, perhaps disbelief. "You think a simple apology is enough? You think it's that easy?" Pain echoed through his words, and Jack could hear the tremors of loss. "I want to help," Jack offered, the words pouring out before he could stop them. "I want to be there for you and Sarah, whatever that looks like. I'm willing to do it. I can't undo what happened, but I want to make sure your family has what it needs." There was a flicker of vulnerability in Mike's eyes, but it was quickly masked by his anger. "Help?" he echoed bitterly. "What do you know about helping? You live in a mansion while my wife can't get out of bed without screaming in pain. What can you possibly do?" The weight of Mike's resentment struck Jack like a punch to the gut. Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. Jack felt the urge to defend himself but knew that in this moment, any argument would fall flat against the stark reality of the pain he caused as Mike's gaze wavered. Jack seized the moment. Listen, I can't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But if there's anything I can do, please, just tell me. Mike's shoulders softened just a fraction, and Jack saw the man beneath the anger. I want my family back. The words hung in the air like fragile glass, ready to shatter. Then let me help get you there, Jack urged, desperation creeping into his voice. Let us work together. Let us get through this together. For a fleeting moment, Mike's expression shifted. Hope? Perhaps. But it flickered away as quickly as it came. You don't understand, he said, his voice low, filled with an exhaustion that tugged at Jack's heart. There's no coming back from this. The conversation spiraled into a myriad of emotions: fear, anger, and a glimmer of something else until a pregnant pause settled over them once more. Jack could feel the weight of their shared pain pressing against them, heavy and unyielding. As Jack left the diner, a sense of determination ignited within him. The conversation had unveiled a fissure of truth in Mike's anguish, one that connected them both. He could be the bridge, but it would require more than just words. Tomorrow he'd reach out to Sarah again. He had to. Hope flickered like a candle in the shadows, fragile yet persistent. There was more at stake than just Mike's pain. There was a family, a future that needed healing, and Jack's heart ached to be part of that journey. What unexpected revelation awaited him when he faced Sarah again? Would the walls she built start to crumble, or would the gulf between them only widen? As the night closed in, Jack felt a trembling urgency building inside him, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The morning broke with a heaviness that wrapped around Jack like a thick blanket. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee before him. It had gone cold, just like the emotions swirling in his chest. Each tick of the clock echoed the desperate need for action. He couldn't sit and wait any longer. Sarah needed to know he was serious about helping. He took a deep breath and picked up his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed her number. The ring sounded like a tolling bell, echoing in the empty space around him. His heart raced as he imagined her voice on the other end. Jack? Sarah's voice was hesitant when she answered, a touch of uncertainty laced within her greeting. The sound of it pulled at him like a thread tugging at a damaged fabric. Sarah, it's me, he said, trying to keep his tone steady. I know it's been a while, but I want to help. Can we talk? There was a long pause. Jack's stomach churned, anxiety coursing through him. Had he misjudged this? Would she slam the door in his face? Okay, she finally replied, her tone cautious. Where? Jack suggested the small park near her house. It offered a slight sense of calm amidst the chaos that had overtaken both their lives. The sun was barely peeking through the trees when he arrived. The world felt muted, as if the color was slowly draining away. Jack spotted Sarah on a bench, her figure small and fragile against the backdrop of the sprawling park. She looked up at him, her eyes betraying a mix of hope and wariness. Hey, he greeted, his heart thudding uncontrollably. Hi, she replied quietly, folding her hands in her lap. They stood in an awkward silence for a moment, both taking in the distance that had grown between them. Jack could sense her wall, sturdy and impenetrable. I wanted to talk about what happened, he said, his voice soft but firm. About everything. I know it must be so hard for you right now. She flinched at his words, her eyes narrowing. You don't know anything, Jack. You don't know the sleepless nights, the anxiety. She brushed her hand across her eyes, as if hoping to wipe away the weight of her pain. I know that I can't fix it, he responded, urgency creeping into his voice. But please, let me try to be there for you and Mike. Even if it's just to listen. A flicker of something passed across her face, apprehension mingled with a hint of curiosity. The truth was, she didn't want to feel alone. Who would? Why now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, scrutinizing him for sincerity. Because I can't keep running from the consequences of my actions, he admitted. I didn't think through the impact of what I did, and I want to make it right. If there's anything I can do for you. As he spoke, Jack noticed the slightest crack in her armor, a moment where vulnerability seeped through. But just as quickly, she pulled back, shaking her head. There's nothing you can do, Jack. I don't know if you can ever understand. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, it was clear that both of them were wrestling with grief, anger, and a desperate longing for connection. Jack could feel the air thicken with unspoken words. But what if I could help with medical expenses? I know I can help with support, anything you might need. Sarah's expression hardened again, her eyes turning stormy. You think money can fix this? You think a check can erase the pain, Jack? His heart sank as he saw her wall rise higher. But he couldn't give up. I'm not saying it will fix everything, but it could lighten the burden, even just a little, right? She stood, turning away from him, tears glistening in the corners of her eyes. Jack's chest tightened at the sight. This isn't just about money, Jack. It's about trust, about loss and love. Right now, I don't know if I can trust you. With that, she began to walk away, leaving Jack feeling helpless against the whirlwind of emotions swirling between them. As he stood there in the park, the chill of the past and the weight of the future crashed over him like a wave. There was something more between them, a shared tragedy. Darkness that needed to be confronted. Would she allow him in, or was he too far gone to ever bridge the gap? The day felt longer than it was, and apprehension filled the air around him, echoing the question he was too fearful to voice. Would he have the strength to spurn his own pain in the hope of forging a fragile connection? The memory of Sarah's words haunted him, leaving him wrestling with an aching desire to uncover the truth that lay beneath their shared suffering. Jack watched Sarah retreat, each step she took feeling like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. The vulnerability he thought had briefly illuminated her expression now felt like an illusion, slipping through his fingers like so many grains of sand. He felt a whirlwind of regret churn in his gut, and it weighed heavy, stifling his breath with each heartbeat. He stood there for a while, the sounds of the park fading into the background, the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves barely registering in his mind. He had to get to her. Ignoring the clenching in his stomach, he called after her, "Sarah, please." She paused but didn't turn around. The seconds felt like eternities as he closed the distance between them. He reached her side again, desperate to find the words that could repair the frayed edges of their connection. "Wait, please," Jack said, his voice trembling slightly. "I know I messed up. I know it doesn't mean much coming from me right now, but I need you to understand." "Understand what?" she snapped, finally spinning to face him. Her eyes shone with unspent tears, fury, and a sense of betrayal. "You don't even know where to begin." "I don't," he admitted, almost breathless, his honesty the only lifeboat he had amid this storm. "But I want to learn. Let me in, or at least let me try. I cared about you then, and I still do. And Mike, he matters to me too." The sound of her son's name hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken possibilities. Her expression shifted, the unfurling of anger shading into something more confused, more raw. "And what's that worth to you?" she challenged, taking a step closer, the ground between them shifting. "You think you can show up and offer a couple of dollars and make it all better?" No, it's not just about that. I want to help. I want to earn your trust back," he implored, his own emotions rising within him like a tidal wave ready to crash down. "I want to be a part of Mike's life." Her gaze flickered, considering, as if weighing his words like precious stones. He could see the battle raging behind her eyes, a desire to accept his offer clashing with the fear of being hurt again. "And how would you even do that?" she replied, her voice softening just a bit. "Is this some kind of atonement for you? Because trust me, it's not that simple. I know it's not, but I'm willing to face the consequences. To be here not just for you and Mike, but to show I can change," he insisted, feeling the lingering grip of sorrow from their past. "Tell me what you need, and I'll find a way. Promise." The world around them fell silent, their breaths the only sound in the gentle breeze that swept through the park. Jack felt hope flicker within him, but it was tender and fragile, a small flame fighting against the cooling air. Sarah studied him, and he could see the gears turning behind those deep, brown eyes. I don't even know what I need, she finally admitted, her voice wavering. I just don't want to keep feeling this way, lost and angry. With that, he took a small step forward, bridging the gap just a little more, praying for her to take the leap of faith that he hoped, somehow, could mend the cracks they both bore. Maybe we can figure it out together? He offered, his heart racing, the sense of urgency pulsating through him. At that moment, a soft rustle caught their attention. They turned to see a small boy approaching, holding a bright yellow flower, the very embodiment of innocence. "Mommy," he called out, his voice filling the air with unintentional lightness. "Look what I found." Jack's breath caught as he watched Sarah's expression transform, whether joyful or sad. He couldn't tell, but the moment felt charged with potential. Would the boy cling to this new hope? Or would it only serve to remind them both of what they stood to lose? Sarah's face softened as she knelt to receive the flower. Jack could feel her gaze flicker between him and Mike, and he dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could begin a new chapter. But would it be enough to mend the wounds that ran deep? The answer hung in the air, tantalizing yet elusive, just like the connection they both desperately sought. As the boy's laughter danced in the warmth of the sunshine, Jack felt a spark of possibility ignite within him once more. Would the chance for healing finally be within reach? Jack held his breath as Sarah accepted the flower, her fingers brushing against Mike's small hands. The innocence of the moment seeped into the tension, filling the space with an unexpected warmth. The way she smiled, just a flicker at first, then wider, made his heart swell. Maybe this was their chance. His knees felt weak, but he steeled himself, ready to summon every ounce of courage within him. "Your flower is beautiful, buddy," he said, trying to inject some cheer into the moment. "Thanks." Mike grinned, his eyes lighting up as he held it out with pride. "Mommy, can we plant it at home?" Sarah's gaze softened, and Jack watched the transformation in real time. For a mom in turmoil, the joy radiating from her son transformed something in her. Just for a moment, the cracks seemed less jagged, less overwhelming. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, her voice wrapping around the words with a gentleness that hit Jack right in the chest. He could see the change ripple through her, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. Could this tiny gesture be the beginning of a bridge rebuilt? Desperate hope gripped him, coursing through his veins like fire. As Mike bounced on his feet, Jack dared to edge closer. "I meant what I said earlier, Sarah. I want to be part of your lives." She looked up at him, and for the first time he didn't see just anger and hurt. He saw something more complex. Vulnerability, fear, and maybe curiosity. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, blinking back tears, her voice trembling. "Just say you'll think about it," he replied, heart racing. "That you won't shut me out completely. Let us start small. We can all have lunch or take Mike to the park. I can show you that I'm serious." Her brow furrowed, a web of emotions crossing her face. "Do you really think it'll be that simple?" "I'm hoping it could be," he said, swallowing hard. "But nothing is guaranteed. I just want the chance to try. I don't want this to be the end." His words hung in the air, the finality of them almost suffocating. Slowly, an idea began to form in Sarah's expression. The glimmer of trust, however fleeting, sparked a reaction in him he hadn't expected. "Let us just take it one step at a time," she finally said, her voice steadied with newfound resolve. There was a softness now, a willingness Jack thought had evaporated. Mike's laughter interrupted their moment and drew their eyes back to him. He was spinning in circles, oblivious to the intensity surrounding them, his little legs pumping like a joyful windmill. "Mommy, look, I'm a tornado," he exclaimed, all sunshine and laughter, making both adults crack a smile. "See?" Jack laughed. "Even a tornado can be fun. Why can't we bring some fun back into our lives, too? Life isn't a tornado, Jack." The seriousness in her voice, while conveying the truth, also held a note of laughter. "Things have to be handled with care. Then let us do that." He stepped forward, bravely closing the distance even more. "We can handle it. Together." In that charged moment, hope blossomed. Jack sensed warmth weaving through the distance separating them, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like they stood at the brink of something beautiful. Sarah took a deep breath, that familiar uncertainty still clouding her eyes. "Okay then, I'll think about lunch." It wasn't a definitive answer, but it was something. Before he could respond, they heard a commotion behind them. Jack turned to see a group of kids chasing after a runaway soccer ball, laughter and shouts echoing along with the shrieks of excited joy. The chaos of their play reignited the spark in Mike's eyes, and he darted off to join them. Jack glanced back at Sarah, and she offered a shaky smile. "Maybe we can start by watching him play," she suggested tentatively. "Yeah, I'd really like that." As they turned to follow Mike, Jack's heart thudded in his chest. He was balancing on the edge of hope. But could this truly be a fresh start? And just as laughter erupted nearby, a sudden shadow loomed over the moment. A figure from Jack's past appeared at the edge of the park, and his stomach dropped. What were the consequences of his past ready to unfold before them now? Jack's heart felt like it had been yanked out of his chest as he locked eyes with the figure standing at the park's edge. It was Tony, his childhood friend turned adversary. That familiar smirk was plastered on Tony's face, a mix of mischief and menace. In that instant, Jack's mind raced with memories good times that had turned sour long ago, and the tension of unspoken words that always loomed between them. "Jack, long time no see," Tony called out, striding closer. His voice echoed, penetrating the laughter and squeals of children around them. Jack felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He didn't want this. Not now, not here, when he had just started to find a secure place with Sarah and Mike. "Hey, Tony," Jack said cautiously, trying to keep his voice steady. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, just taking a stroll, reliving old memories. You know how it is." Tony's eyes flicked toward Sarah, and Jack felt the protective instinct flare within him. "Looks like you've settled down." "Huh?" Jack clenched his fists. "This isn't the place for whatever you're thinking, Tony." He stepped closer to Sarah as if that would shield her from the impending storm. "Don't kid yourself, Jack. You really think you can just pick up where you left off?" Tony's grin grew more sardonic, and Jack could see a plan brewing in his eyes. "Enough!" Sarah stepped forward, surprising both men. "Who are you and why are you bothering us?" Her voice was firm, and Jack marveled at the strength radiating from her. "I'm just an old friend," Tony said dismissively, but Jack knew he wasn't just a friend. This was the kind of person who thrived on chaos, and chaos was the last thing they needed. "Leave us alone," Jack said, every word laced with tension. It was like standing in the eye of a hurricane. They had just begun to weave their way back into something worthwhile, and now this. With a chuckle, Tony stepped back. All right, I'll leave, for now. But don't be surprised if I come calling again." The warning hung in the air like a foul odor, and Jack felt the weight of it in his chest as Tony walked away. Mike bounded back toward them, breathless and oblivious to the tension. "Mommy, did you see how I kicked the ball? I'm the best." He bounced in place, laughter spilling from him like sunshine breaking through clouds. Jack forced a smile, but his heart was still hammering in his chest. He looked at Sarah, who wore a concerned frown. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. Her vulnerability tugged at him. I think so. It's just," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I had left all that behind." "It's not over, Jack. People don't just disappear." The heaviness in her tone was palpable, and it reminded him of why he felt compelled to fight for them. He stepped closer and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "We can deal with it, together." "Okay. Sure. Together," she replied, but her eyes betrayed her apprehension. The warmth they had shared moments ago felt distant now. Before he could gather his thoughts, Mike's voice rang out again. "Let us play, Mommy. Don't worry. I'll keep us safe." Jack couldn't help but smile at Mike's fierce determination. If only adults had the same resolve. As they turned to join the game, Jack felt a lingering dread twist in his stomach. Could he truly protect his new family from the ghosts of his past? And as they stepped into the lively chaos of the playground, he realized the shadows weren't just about what was behind him. They loomed like dark clouds over their future. What would it take to chase them away for good? Would he even have the chance to find out? Jack tried to shake off the heaviness as they rejoined the lively throng of children and parents. Mike was off again, darting towards the swings, his laughter ringing like a sweet bell. Sarah stood beside Jack, her features softening a bit as she watched their son. Yet the weight of their earlier encounter clung tightly to him, tightening his chest. "Jack," she said softly, her fingers brushing against his arm. "We should talk about what just happened." He nodded, but words were hard to find. What could he say? How could he explain the turmoil that Tony stirred within him? Jack had spent so long trying to bury that part of his life, trying to be the man he wanted to be for Sarah and Mike. But Tony's presence felt like a boulder crashing into the fragile sandcastle of their new life. "Maybe we should just go home," Sarah suggested, peering into his eyes. "I don't want you to be uneasy when we should be enjoying this time together." Jack took a deep breath, letting the fresh air clear his mind for a moment. "No, I want to stay." He forced a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We can't let him ruin today." As they moved to the sandbox, Mike squealed, "Look, Mommy, I made a castle." His cheeks were flushed with excitement, and Jack's heart swelled a bit. This was what life was supposed to look like: joy, laughter, safety. "Wow, that's amazing," Sarah encouraged, kneeling down beside Mike to admire his creation. Jack watched, caught in the moment of their bond. He clenched his jaw, determined to shield these two from any storm that could come. But as he watched his family, shadows continued to swirl around him. Questions knotted together in his mind like tight coils. How could Tony dare to intrude? What did he want? And most importantly, how long would it be before he returned? The chatter of nearby parents faded into a humming confusion as Jack's thoughts drifted away. He felt a pang of anger mixed with fear. Anger for the man Tony had become and fear of what that meant for his family. "Jack?" Sarah's voice broke through his spiral of thoughts. "You're not in the sandbox with us." He blinked, shaking off the haze. "Sorry, just deep in thought." She smiled, pretending to be annoyed. "You know, the best part about a sandbox is that you actually have to get dirty." He chuckled softly, and though it lifted his spirits momentarily, the enormity of the challenge ahead settled heavy again. After some time, he noticed a group of friends gathering nearby. They were laughing, sharing stories amidst playful banter. A few of them turned to give him curious glances, as if they sensed something brewing beneath the surface. "Wanna go say hi?" Sarah suggested, her eyes darting toward the group. "Maybe," Jack replied. But before he could finish, a lifted voice echoed from the perimeter of the playground. "Hey, Jack." Jack turned and his breath caught. It was someone from his past. Someone who had been closely tied to Tony. The fleeting sense of panic surged anew in his chest. The murmurs around him grew louder, people turning to see what would unfold. He felt Sarah's hand grip his arm hard, grounding him. "Who is it?" she asked, concern etching her features. "I don't know," he whispered, his heart racing. "But they shouldn't be here." In that moment, Jack realized the chaos from his past wasn't just lingering, it was closing in on him, creeping back into his life. All the tightly wound threads began to unravel, and he feared what might surface. His eyes flared with dread as he took a defensive stance. What did this new arrival mean for them? What happened to his promise of safety? As the figure stepped closer, Jack held his breath. What was about to unfold? The truth wasn't just unpredictable. It was destined to change everything. Jack's heart thudded painfully in his chest as the figure, a tall man with a slicked-back hairstyle and an expensive look about him, drew nearer. The playground, once a scene filled with laughter, now felt like a stage for a confrontation. He barely registered the voices around him, the chirps of children, or the warm sun above. All he could focus on was this unexpected intruder from his past. "Jack, it's been a while," the man called out, his voice dripping with a mix of mockery and rehearsed friendliness. Jack clenched his fists at his side, trying to steady the rising tide of anger and fear. "Jeff," he muttered through gritted teeth. The name felt like venom on his tongue. Jeff had always been Tony's shadow, a smirk painted on his face, usually at someone else's expense. Jack had hoped never to see him again. "Hope you're doing well," Jeff continued, his gaze flickering over to Sarah and Mike, holding their little castle of sand. The chilling recognition in his eyes sent a fresh wave of dread through Jack. Sarah took a step closer to him, her face taut with confusion. "Jack, who is this?" "It's just someone I used to know," he said, forcing a calm tone. "Nothing to worry about." The lies felt heavy, suffocating. But Jeff didn't allow the tension to simmer. "Oh, come on. We used to be friends, right?" He flashed a grin that felt far too wide. "Friends?" Jack scoffed, his voice low and edged. "That's not how I remember it." "Relax. I'm just here to catch up," Jeff said, lifting his hands mockingly in surrender. "No harm intended. Just wanted to see how life is treating you." Jack's instincts screamed for him to defend his family. He felt like a wounded animal backed into a corner, ready to fight. "You shouldn't be here, Jeff." "Not now." "Why not?" Jeff replied, feigning surprise. "I just came to say hi. It's a beautiful day. For old friends to reconnect." The laughter and carefree atmosphere around them continued but felt miles away. The lively colors of the playground faded, replaced by a dark focus on Jeff's intrusive presence. "Dad?" Mike's small voice broke into the tense silence. He looked back and forth between them, sensing something was off. Jack's heart sank further. This was exactly what he wanted to protect them from. "Why don't you go play?" Jack urged, forcing a smile onto his face. "We'll be over in a minute." But Mike didn't budge, arms crossed, eyes darting between his father and the stranger. "Is he a bad man?" Mike whispered, like he had overheard the secrets of the universe and was too young to understand. Not really," Jack managed, but the words felt hollow. In that moment, all Jack wanted was to pile sand on top of Jeff's self-satisfied smirk and bury him beneath. "Well, I actually know why you're really here," Jeff said, leaning closer as if they were sharing secrets. "You can't hide from your past forever, Jack. It has a way of creeping back." Jack's breath hitched, every nerve in him screaming to defend his family. He could feel Sarah's tension radiating beside him. She had heard the danger behind Jeff's words. "What do you want, Jeff?" Jack demanded, his voice low and fierce. "Oh, just a little chat about Tony. Things have changed. You might find it interesting." The statement hung heavy in the air, and a chill ran down Jack's spine. What could he possibly say or do to shield Sarah and Mike from this new wildfire encroaching on their lives? With his mind racing, Jack felt a surge of desperation. "What do you mean by that?" But Jeff only smiled wider, his eyes gleaming with mischief, as if he held a dangerous card. In that moment, Jack knew this wasn't just a playful exchange, it was a warning sign. The storm was already here, and it was about to explode, dragging his family into its vicious currents. He took a step back, heart hammering, trying to hold on to his composure as he realized he couldn't control what would happen next. As voices swirled in his mind, one truth rang clear. The past wasn't just creeping back. It was charging at them like a freight train, and there was nowhere to run. What would Jeff reveal? What secrets from the past could shake the foundations of everything Jack had built? Jack's breaths came fast, like thunder before a storm. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, the past clawing its way back into his present. Jeff's smirk only deepened as he sensed the turmoil in Jack's eyes. With every word dripped in malice, he knew Jeff wanted nothing more than to exploit the insecurities Jack had fought so hard to bury. "Come on, Jack. I know you're dying to hear the scoop," Jeff taunted, his voice dripping with condescension. Jack glanced at Sarah, her wide eyes reflecting unshed tears and confusion. Mike, innocent and unaware, sat there with the remnants of his sandcastle, blissfully untainted by the darkness swirling nearby. Jack felt a surge of protectiveness, his heart racing with the need to shield his family from this toxic intruder. "Leave us alone, Jeff." Jack's voice broke through the tension like a crack of lightning. "You don't belong here." He straightened his shoulders, trying to regain some semblance of control. But Jeff leaned closer, an unwelcome invader crossing the threshold of his life. But you see, that's where you're wrong. This is my home too, he hissed, nodding toward the playground crowded with families. You think you can just erase who you were? The games you played? The people you hurt? Jack's fists clenched tighter, anger roiling within him. I've changed. He couldn't contain the emotions bursting forth, the indignation at being reduced to a past he was desperate to escape. We've all changed. Changed? That's rich coming from you, Jeff said, his tone mocking. Tony's on the move again, and let me tell you, he hasn't exactly forgotten about your little accident. The mention of Tony sent a jolt of electricity through Jack. Anxiety gripped him. It felt as if the shadows of his past threatened to swallow them whole. Sarah's grip on his arm tightened, her brow furrowing deeper. What are you talking about? She demanded sharply, her protective spirit flaring. Jack stole a quick glance at their son, who remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing above him. He's being dramatic, just ignore him, Jack urged, steeling himself to shield them from the chaos Jeff was attempting to unleash. Dramatic? Hardly. Jeff laughed, enjoying the vulnerability he had unearthed. But hey, it's your life. Good luck keeping your little family safe from the real dangers out there. With one last glance toward Mike, he added, I'd hate for that little boy to get caught in the middle of all this mess. Jack's blood ran cold, anger mixing with the fear surging within him. You're pathetic. You think you can intimidate me? He spat, his resolve strengthening. Let me make something very clear. You have no hold over me anymore. But deep inside, he felt the gnawing uncertainty. He had fought hard for redemption, to carve a better life alongside Sarah and Mike. The fear that haunted him lingered like an uninvited shadow, threatening to overshadow everything he had worked for. Jack turned to Sarah, her features sharp with worry, an unspoken question in her eyes. Please, just let us go, she whispered, her voice frail yet urging. And in that moment, tucked between the words and worries, the flicker of hope ignited within Jack. No, he straightened, determination hardening his voice. I won't let him ruin what we have. Jack took Sarah's hand, anchoring himself to her strength. The warmth of their connection fueled his courage, and he faced Jeff head-on. You don't have power over my future. You don't get to write this story. With furrowed brows, Sarah responded. What do? We stand together no matter what. His voice steadied. I'll deal with my past, but I won't allow it to poison our lives. Micah bounced up to them, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Can we go play? Jack's heart clenched. For Micah's sake. The innocence in his voice amplified the need for resolution. Yeah, buddy. Let us go play. He forced a smile, willing it to reach both Sarah and Mike. As they turned to walk back toward the playground, Jack felt a tug of resistance behind him. You're making a mistake, Jack, Jeff called out, but Jack didn't flinch. He matched that challenge with resolve. Maybe you're the one making a mistake. Surrounded by colorful laughter and shouts, Mike led the way. The sounds of joy washed over Jack and Sarah like balm to a wound. With every step away from Jeff, he felt lighter, reinvigorated. A sense of healing took its place within him, blossom by fragile blossom. As he rejoined Sarah and Mike as they watched Mike plunge back into the excitement, Jack turned to Sarah. We'll figure this out, I promise. Together we'll make it right. A soft resolve brightened her eyes, and Jack's heart surged. Shadows loomed still, but they had each other. Hand in hand, they faced the oncoming storms. They wouldn't allow the past to dictate their future. They would rise instead, transforming their heartbreak into strength. And Jack knew that no matter what happened next, he would fight for the family he was building, leaving the shadows behind as they stepped into the light together. Now is the moment. If you want to be part of this ongoing journey, you need to subscribe now to the channel and join us for more inspiring stories. Don't wait not even one more second, leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others who need this message. And share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who could benefit from seeing this transformation. Your support is everything. Let us build this community together. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this unforgettable journey.